Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and today it is an honor to introduce our distinguished speaker. Leigh Brown has carved a unique path as an author, speaker, and real estate professional and leader. Leigh has served as president of North Carolina REALTORS in 2023 and continues to serve every neighbor, every zip code through real estate and advocacy for this great profession. Here is a little bit about Leigh Brown. She leverages her extensive real estate experience spanning decades to guide professionals in the industry. Whether they're just starting out or seasoned experts, her mission is to empower real estate agents and REALTOR members to cultivate a formidable profession to presence and unwavering confidence. Leigh recognizes that the ever-changing landscape of real estate, today's agents and brokers face unique challenges. Through her systematic approach to uncovering and articulating individual value, Leigh equips agents and brokers with the self-assuredness and tools they need to soar to new heights in their chosen careers. As a renowned best-selling author of 3 influential business books, Leigh eagerly imparts her wisdom to anyone seeking to ignite their passions and manifest their desired outcomes. Above all, Leigh Brown is driven by a deep-seated commitment to uplifting others. Her unyielding determination and boundless enthusiasm inspire those around her to reach for greater achievements. Leigh's enthusiasm is infectious, and her commitment to public service is second to none. She is passionate about helping others to learn, grow, and achieve their full potential as community and professional leaders. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming the remarkable Leigh Brown to the stage. Leigh, how are you today? Happy Friday.
Fantastic. Thanks for having me today. I'm an honor to be with you.
Thank you. It's an honor and pleasure too. What year did you get into real estate, if you don't mind sharing?
Well, I got my license in 1998 because my dad, who is a career realtor, told me just get it at night school just in case. I was working in corporate sales at the time and said, you know what, may as well knock it out. And then I didn't use it for 2 years. And when I finally hit the breaking point with corporate America in 2000, I came in full time.
Wow. And did the .com affect you at all? And do you remember how you got your first client by chance?
Well, it's interesting. The way that I came in is how I wish everybody came in, because my dad served as my mentor and he treated me like an apprentice. So for the first 90 days, I wasn't allowed to talk to a buyer or a seller. I lived in his hip pocket. If he had an appointment, I went with him. If he was on the phone, I was listening. I mean, I was just there to soak it up. And then he decided I was ready. And a phone call came in from another agent who had a friend who needed to buy a house. And those people became my very first buyers. They are still some of my dearest friends today. In fact, they named their daughter after me, and we've done a ton of transactions. So you don't always have to have that first client be a training ground. And it's one of my frustrations with the industry is that we do have agents that train own clients instead of being properly trained before they have a client.
No, it makes total sense. No, he took you in your wing. You were just shadowing. And has the identity of your first client changed since now, or is there a new niche that you've picked?
Well, after COVID started and everything got really weird, I have always been a very big proponent of real estate investing. I bought my first rental property in 2002 and have been trying to add to my portfolio. Well, most agents don't know investments very well. And as COVID took off, there were a lot of people that said, hey, I need to expand how I look at my investment strategy. And so I moved into multifamily, and very similar to how I got into the residential side, have a very good friend in real estate who took me under his wing and taught me how to do multifamily. And that's where I really enjoy helping people maximize their investments as well as doing the residential side.
Wow, you're a jack of all trades. You really know what's up. And how did the 0809 affect you by chance? Do you remember those years?
Oh, best years of my business were the short sale years, because I think my life is pretty much a series of rhymes. When the market stopped, and I can tell you the day that it hit here in the Charlotte, North Carolina market, it was July 31st of 2007. That was when the first big lender failed, and that was American Home Mortgage. Well, that was one of my preferred lenders. I had 7 closings that day because, as a lot of people in real estate know, the bulk of your closings land at the end of the month to minimize cash out of pocket for your buyers. 7 closings that day. They all had packages that had been sent to the attorney's office, but they all never got funded because the bank closed up shop. And so we had to immediately take all 7 of those families, change mortgage gears, and we got all of them successfully closed. But at that time, it was such a shock to the system. The phone stopped ringing. And I was like every other agent, went into a panic there for a minute of how am I going to pay my bills? What am I going to do? I had 2 toddlers at home. My husband had his job. And I actually went and applied for a job as a church organist because I said, I got to find some kind of income, but they didn't hire me because I'm mediocre at best. And then I just was pouring into my business education. How do I do short sales? How do I do foreclosures? How do I guide people? And my business grew in 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. And it was the best time for my real estate business, but it's because I had to lean in to learn. And a lot of agents were so paralyzed by the shock to the system. They just gave up. And I would have agents call me and say, hey, I got a short sale. Can you take it? It's too much for me. And I'd say, yes, absolutely. I'll help your people, pay you referral fee, whatever. But they just froze. And I think we're seeing that right now with the changes to structural real estate. There's a lot of agents that are in absolutely frozen mode because they don't know how to pivot. And that's just a good life skill to learn how to pivot and be resilient.
No, that's super true. Yeah, you're super self-aware that you know how to take a step back and actually see the big picture and know where to pivot. So I applaud you. That's actually a real skill that you have, an intangible skill set that really can't be measured. And
think about it though, like how many of us are honest with ourselves and say, well, I don't know, therefore I'm going to learn. You have to be able to say you're not all things to all people. I don't know it. I've got to go figure it out. And once you figure that out in life, how to evaluate and go fix and fill gaps, man, you could really knock the cover off the ball.
No, seriously. And when did you become your own broker owner and start running your own shop? And how many agents have you scaled up to now?
Well, because I came into the business with my dad, we were in someone else's franchise with one of the large companies at that time. And then 3 years later, we had decided, well, we can do it a better way. So we opened our own franchise in that same brand. And we held on to that until in 2011, my dad had a pretty nasty heart attack. And his cardiologist said, you're either getting out of real estate or you're going to be dead. And so my dad said, you know what? I'm going to take a big old step back and retire because I got grandkids. And he's still alive today, but he's fully retired because he understood the stress of this business and what it can do to you. And I wish more people in real estate acknowledged the stress so they would deal with it. But that was in 2011. And I said, I don't want to do this by myself. I don't want to be a franchise. And so I rolled my franchise in with the largest franchise owner here in the Charlotte area and loved my partner. He was wonderful for the business. But in 2020, I had hit this point of, I don't fit under the brand anymore. I need to do my own thing. So I successfully exited, and there was nothing negative about my exit. It was just time for me to do something different. And I opened this independent firm in January of 2020, perfect timing, right ahead of COVID hitting. And now we consider ourselves small but mighty. There are 4 agents in our firm and our support staff, and we would always welcome more people, but not everybody fits our model, and that's okay.
That's completely okay. Yeah, as long as you're keeping it rolling and you're gonna be successful. When it's all said and done, what legacy do you hope to leave behind through your work?
I really hope that other people out there saw their life get better because they encountered me. And I don't know what better looks like for them, but I just want to plant seeds. And when I look at what home ownership does for people, I'm not sure that we really do a good enough job of telling the story, because when somebody gets into their own home and they own it, their kids do better in school, their healthcare outcomes are improved, they dial into their communities in a different way, whether it's volunteering with the PTO or with the Arts Council, they take care of the neighborhood monuments, they plant gardens, things just really scale up. And that's whether you're in a single wide trailer in the country or you're in a really fancy lakefront home. My job as a realtor is to tell people there is a pathway, and you get to pick it. That's the cool part of the American dream. It's your pathway, it's your end goal, but I'm going to help you see the way to set the stone so you can get there. And I really hope that the people who've encountered me have felt encouraged.
No, definitely. You're empowering communities. You're cultivating to better the community, and you're helping the trajectory of like generational wealth for it to come. So we were definitely going to thank you in the future. What's one piece of advice you wish you had received earlier in your career that you think could have been a catalyst or changed your whole trajectory?
Oh, I wish I had learned how to close my pocketbook sooner on great ideas. It's so easy to spend money when you're in sales. You hear about this great advertising and this great opportunity and this billboard and this magazine. And a lot of that is vanity advertising because we want to see ourselves in great places without acknowledging that that's not where our best business comes from. My best business comes from somebody saying, I identify with you. I identify with your foundational values and beliefs, and I got your name from this friend or that friend. I could have put a lot more money in the bank if I had just stayed completely focused on my foundational values and my relationships instead of all the flashy things.
Well, yeah, sometimes it's just sometimes you just gotta keep it old school, and you just have it really word of mouth is sometimes more powerful than just advertising. Um, Lee, have you ever been like driving or like on your phone or watching TV? Like, maybe if I wasn't in real estate, I'll be doing something else. Has there ever been like another career you wish you would have picked if it was
Oh, I mean, I ask myself that every day now. I mean, in my medium years, now I know what the midlife crisis looks like. It's, am I having most impact for the gifts I've been given? Am I living out the calling God has for me? Maybe I am, maybe I'm not. Should I be doing something different? Again, that's back to that thing I said earlier. You have to be humble enough to know where your gaps are and how do you fill them. Well, I know what my strengths are. I know what my weaknesses are. So do I make my weaknesses stronger or do I make my strengths stronger? I mean, you can play all these games, but I originally thought when I went off to college many, many years ago, I went on a music scholarship to Florida State, go Noles, and I thought I was going to be a high school chorus teacher. That was my dream. I always look at choirs and I think, man, I still kind of wish I were doing something in the musical space, but I'm really not as talented as so many of the people who do it. So maybe that's not where I should have been. And I loved my English teacher, Grace Byers. She was the best. I love diagramming sentences, and young people don't learn that anymore. Should I start teaching English and help people fall back in love with Western Civ and with the beauty of language? Maybe I should be doing that. Maybe I should be doing something to write more. I don't know. I really don't know. I'm so fascinated by, I mean, what we see in real estate, other people's jobs. No idea that job existed. That's a job. That's real. This is so cool. And you get to, other people's lives are interesting to me, but when it comes down to it, I don't really want their lives. I'm very interested in them. So probably my calling is to keep doing this and just be open to what comes next.
No, yeah, I definitely see you as a shepherd and you guiding the sheep. Like you definitely know how to guide somebody. I would say just by talking to you. What's your favorite book, podcast, or article that had a significant impact on your life or work? Would you say?
I mean, outside of the Bible, which is wildly fascinating, and if you're a viewer or a listener and that's not your book, that's not your faith system, I'm still going to challenge you to pick it up and read it because the truth in it and the wisdom in it can't be matched. It's a living book, and every time I open it, I'm thinking, I've read this, I never saw that before. Well, how about this? Because it speaks to you where you are in life in different places. Hands down, my favorite book. If I had to pick a non-faith book as a favorite, it's Atlas Shrugged by Ayn Rand. I'm always flabbergasted by how many people who are politically attuned and philosophically attuned have never picked it up, and probably because they're intimidated by its 1,200 page length. But I read that for the first time in the 8th grade, and that's how big a nerd I am. But I've read it to shreds over the years. And right now, what's happening in our society and in our political machinations is very much what she foretold as a Russian immigrant back in the earliest part of the 20th century. So those are my two favorites. And if I had to pick something that was not related to the hardcore things, if it's something soft, I just finished reading Shepherds for Sale by Megan Basham. Fascinating book about what's happening in the church. And I read Hillbilly Elegy by J.D. Vance when it first came out in 2016. But because it's almost a decade now and I forget things, I'm reading it again. So I'm interested in other people's lives. I'm interested in the way our thought processes go. And that's why I don't watch much TV. I find it to be just completely vacuous, and I don't have the energy for that.
Nah, no worries at all. Lee. You're a sponge. You love soaking up knowledge, but at the same time, you're also super pragmatic. Like you're not just theoretical. You're actually super pragmatic, and you like to execute. So I enjoy that about you. Um, what do you what are your goals for the next 5 to 10 years? Do you think?
Well, I would like for my real estate firm to remain profitable and that my agents are all able to hit the goals that they set for themselves. That's a now goal and also a 5 and 10 year goal because I'm too young to retire. And I think real estate, as it evolves, will remain an exciting entrepreneurial space to be in. For me personally, my husband will probably retire from his corporate job. So we'll likely open another business that he might really enjoy as a stretch from being in the corporate world. So that'll happen in the next 5 years, is my guess. And I would just, you know, I don't have monetary goals anymore. Money doesn't control me. I've had the opportunity to travel all over the world. So there's places I might go back to, and maybe I'll even take lessons. Actually, now that I say that, I'm probably going to take some language lessons. I desperately need to button up some more Spanish phraseology because we have such a diverse population here in the Charlotte area, and that would help me to communicate. So I'll add that to my list.
Yeah, definitely. And I'm sure AI will be able to help you in a couple of years too. Where like
I don't do AI. I think it's of the devil. I do not like AI, and just hear it from me now. No, y'all can have AI. I don't like it. I don't trust it. It's bad.
yeah, all right. Hey, only time will tell, Lee. Only time will tell. What's your take on the future of this? What just occurred in August with the buyers having to have more transparency with the buyers? How are you seeing this as an opportunity and not as adversity? Would you say?
Well, we're lucky in North Carolina real estate because we've had buyer agency by general statute since the 90s. It's a conversation we've always had. The only change now, as I like to explain to people, is that previously everything was baked into one cake, and now the eggs have been taken out of the cake and set over on the counter. So the question is, how do we keep the cake going and utilize the eggs and keep everybody in the process? Because it all has a place. And that's going to sort itself out. What's going to happen in the real estate market is that the consumer public is going to migrate to the more experienced agents for quite some time because an inexperienced agent right now can absolutely cost you a lot of money. So I'm hoping that the younger agents dial into a mentor system, that they get really intent on becoming masters of the craft, and the market as it's changing is going to require a new skill set than the COVID market required. That's all completely different than what's changing with how commissions are structured and how transparency is structured. And agents are going to have to figure out how to explain what they bring to the table at the same time that they navigate a changing market. One thing that I find to be pretty fascinating is that these terms of this settlement, which were dictated by the trade association, but are devastating the businesses of everyday realtors because it was just thrown on them. All of those changes were predicated on a market behaving like it behaved during COVID, when a listing did not have to receive a couple of months of marketing and massaging and figuring out of price, because in 2021, you put a sign in the yard, the house was gone, buyers were fighting over it. Well, that market has changed completely. So the terms of the settlement, I don't know, are going to disrupt an experienced agent, but they will disrupt inexperience.
No, totally. Yeah, it's definitely gonna be more. It's definitely gonna become like a higher standard of skill set. I would say for the newer agent, as opposed to it was pre-COVID or during COVID.
Which is
And,
fine.
yeah, no, it totally is. It totally is. Yeah, you get what you deserve, and that's what we're playing. That's this new realm that we're playing in. What's the most challenging aspect of being in your role in today's world? Would you say?
Well, for me personally, the challenge is that through years and years of putting videos and content onto social platforms, I started getting involved in video in, I guess, 2011. I think was my first viral video. So it's a long time. I have become a voice and a face of real estate, which means I have expectations of me that frankly I put on myself, fully aware of that I have to be out there all the time. I have to stay positive all the time. There's a lot of pressure to that, but I also know that it's a wonderful opportunity to have a platform and I can't squander that. But it's you don't know what you're asking for when you think I'd like for my videos to go viral. I want a bunch of followers, because if you have a lot of followers, well, now you got sheep that got to be herded.
Yeah, you're totally right.
I got to be a good shepherd.
Yeah. No, but 2011, you were like a market mover. You're innovative. For you to go
But you know
viral.
what? That video is its own story, because I was so frustrated. I had a short sale house that we had been through the process months and months, finally got it approved, got it closed. It closes, and the following week, the foreclosure clean out team came to the house, because in the big banks, the short sale department is divorced from the foreclosure department. They do not talk to each other. So the house that went through this system was the same house in this system, and they did not match up. I get a frantic call from the buyer's agent. Oh my God, the foreclosure guys are at the house to trash it out. They've got guns. I mean, because they had to. And what are my people supposed to do? They bought the house. And I said, holy crap, I don't know. So I'm calling the bank. Bank never returned a phone call. You can't get a live person. You know, your call was very important to us. Is it really though? And so I'm chasing through the system. I can't get a human. Email, ha ha ha. That never worked during the short sale era. And so I said, you know what? And I handed my phone to my assistant at the time. I said, I'm going to make a video. Hold my phone. And so I put it in black and white mode so it looks all grainy. And I went off on Bank of America and posted it to the internet. I think I put it on YouTube and Twitter, because Twitter was brand new at that time. You would never have put that on Facebook or Instagram, because those were still, who did you go to high school with kind of. Actually, Instagram I don't think existed. So I put it out in those channels. And that's when I found out that the banks, like many other companies, have these employees that just watch the internet for content related to the brand as they do brand navigation. And darn if I didn't get a call from Bank of America from a senior vice president like 30 minutes after that video, because that video started rolling pretty fast. Because if you remember in 2011, everybody was mad at the big banks. All the normal people were, because of their bailouts and because of their behavior. And when he called me, I told him what went down, and it got fixed. And I said, oh man, I have power. I have power by going to the people instead of going to the system, because the system was completely non-responsive. Of the social role, well, that worked. And so we got the buyers safe, and the buyer's agent felt like she could relax, because her only goal was taking care of the people she moved into that house. So I had one agent who was like, why would you bother? It wasn't your problem now. It's after closing. And I said, it is still our responsibility to take care of each other. That buyer agent didn't have the access that I had. Why would I not help her, even though it's after closing? And so it was definitely a earth-shattering moment. I landed on CNBC as they talk about it was the best bank rant they'd ever seen. And I was like, what is this? And then it didn't really grow from there, because I did not understand. We didn't have algorithms at the same degree back then that we have now, but you have to make your social strategy consistent, and it's got to be cohesive, and it's got to keep moving. So I did video and stops and starts for a while until it finally sunk in that I should be doing a lot more of this.
No, you're genius. You literally thought outside the box, and you found like the third way. Usually there's only two ways, and you found a third way somehow to get something done. So like, I applaud you, honestly. That's literally a great story to share. What do you think is the key to maintaining a work-life balance, and how do you apply it in your life?
Well, there is no such thing as work-life balance if you're doing a job that you really enjoy. And I really enjoy real estate. I really enjoy training. So balance is pretty imaginary. And I do think it adds a lot of stress to people in real estate when they feel like they're supposed to hit some imaginary middle ground. I look at it as work-life management. I've got to manage the time that I have, and I've got to manage it well. My husband is a part of that, so he understands the demands of real estate. My kids, of course, like every other realtor's kid, went to showings, and they went to listing appointments, and they've been all over the place, and now they're out of the house. So it would be easy for me to work more now that my husband and I have become bird launchers, but I have found that I really am enjoying getting to spend time with him again. So now I've got to just reshape my schedule. And I think that's what it's got to look like for everybody. If there's a problem people in real estate have, is that they don't know how to turn it off. And they take this little poisonous device and let it live in their hand all the time. And every time it buzzes, they check it and they stay like this because they feel like they have to respond all the time. When in reality, you can turn it upside down on your desk and you won't see it flash. You can put it in airplane mode and life will go on for an hour. And you can even take a day off. The only important thing is to communicate that fact. My clients all know that it is hard to get me on a Sunday because Sundays for me are for worship. They are for family time. I make dinner for my parents. I have a whole schedule on Sunday that does not involve work. Even though it's work for me, it's what I enjoy. And I don't think I've lost any business for that. And if I have, then it was bad business anyway.
Whoa, that's I like the way you think. I like the way you think. You really are like you really know how to prioritize, and we know what's important to you and what keeps you happy. I like that.
You learn it the hard way, right? So I think we all make the mistake early on of, I have to make it, so I'm going to work too many hours. I'm going to do all things for all people. And then you wind up missing out on some really important moments. I can look back at my kids' earlier years. I would give anything to get into a time machine and give up some of those listing appointments to be home just that extra hour when I felt like I had really good quality time. I could turn it over to my husband so I could go do a listing appointment. He's very capable. He's a wonderful dad, but I would take every ounce of money I've ever looked at and give it all away to go back and get those minutes. And you can't. So for anybody that's watching this, if you have younger kids or middle-sized kids, if they're still young enough that you drive them around, do not let this business take you away from the most important job you've been given, which is that of mom and dad.
Oh, you're totally right. Yeah, because after they're 18, I think it was supposed to say like you spend 97% of your time with your kids until like they're 18, and after which they just like create their own wings and take off. And you're right; those memories are very priceless. Like there's like it's like more like a sentimental value than economic value. That's
Yes.
far superior. And what's the biggest lesson you've learned in your career so far?
Well, I should have said no earlier. So it dials into the question you just asked. And if you think about it, in real estate, it is a constant addiction to the next lead, the next listing, the next this, the next this. And so you say yes to everybody. And you thought you were going to take a day off, but then you were going to take just one phone call. I was going to show just one house. I'm just going to do this one thing. And you're sucked in, and now you're sucked in all day. And even if you were going to relax, your brain is now completely in real estate. So you're not even relaxing and focusing. And if I had learned earlier that I could put guardrails on my business and it wouldn't hurt me, well, I would have done it sooner. But I told myself a lie that if I'm not available, they're going to call somebody else. It is the most common lie told in real estate. If they don't get me, they don't get anything good. Okay, the reality is I'm a very good realtor. There are other very good realtors, and that consumer might be just as well off with somebody else. You have to come to that realization and say, you know what? I'm unavailable today. However, my favorite realtor is available. May I send you to her so that I can have a life? She'll take great care of you. And then you learn that by letting some things go, you gain a lot more. And guardrails on your business, best thing you'll ever do. And when I talk about guardrails too, I should point out I'm a morning person. I get up at 4:30 most days. I am completely done by about 7 o'clock. I am worthless in the evenings. So for the client that wants me on an evening appointment, I get to say to them, I am not at my best at 7 o'clock. I am great at 7 a.m. So you want to catch me before work, or maybe we could catch up at lunchtime, or we could do the afternoon. They love that I tell them the truth. But if they're night owls and they want a realtor they can talk to at 9 o'clock at night for an hour, I need to refer them out because they're not going to get the best of me. And we have to have enough self-awareness to say, when I'm great, I'm great. And when I'm off, I'm not. And that's an important thing for the consumer to hear too.
Yeah. No, seriously. No, she's not kidding. She really is an early bird. Like she had messaged me back to do one more podcast for me. Thank you. And then, but you really know how to create win-win situations for everybody. And like that's like you're elite at doing that, just creating win-wins for everybody. What's your advice for someone starting out in today's world in 2024? Because usually what we do today plays out 3 months from now. So if someone were to come to you today, like how could they end the year strong and really like take off in 2025 with you?
Well, it's actually in this little poisonous device here. So if you go into your phone, there's this thing called a contact manager. What? And there's people in here that have phone numbers. And what happened if you called all the people in your phone? I know, crazy, right? But that's the one thing realtors don't want to do. It's the one thing people in sales don't want to do. The excuse is they don't need anything. Well, how do you know? Did you ask them? No, you didn't. You just assuming. And they say, well, they're not local. Okay, well, if I call my friend in Dallas, Texas, maybe they're now thinking top of mind real estate. Well, what if they say to me, well, actually, we're thinking of selling. You want to help us? I'm like, I don't have a Texas license, but I got a girl. You might pick up a referral relationship. You might find out that they have a question about what paint color is hot right now, because now agreeable gray is finally moving out to pasture. They want to know what to paint their house. You don't know what their needs are, but especially right now, especially if you're getting started right now, what a gift you are, because you don't have all of the past history and all the bad habits. You are new. And so as the market reshapes itself, you're going to be shaped with it. So you're actually going to be ahead of the 30-year agents who are resistant to change. So you have an advantage there. And because of all the kerfluffle being caused by lawsuits and headlines and settlements and all that, the phone call becomes, hey, it's Leigh Brown with One Community. How are you? Yes, I just got any questions about real estate. It's not who do you need to buy? Who do you know that needs to buy or sell? We're not asking about buyers and sellers. Do you have questions about real estate? Because what you're looking for is, are they watching the headlines? Do they honestly have some concerns about how things are working, or are they not? Because the stat that I saw from the CEO of Next Home Real Estate, James Wiggins, he's so smart, and he looks at some surveys. It's estimated that 25% of the public even knows anything's changing in real estate, because they're not doing real estate. They're focused on the ball field and their job and their mom. They're focused on their own lives. If they're not buying or selling, why would they pay attention to this? And if you realize that, you have this easy phone call. You have any questions about anything? If they say, no, I'm good. Great. Well, can I help you with anything in life? No, I'm good. All right. Talk to you soon. Boom, boom, you're out. But what if they say, well, yeah, we want to know if our interest rate's going to come back down because blah, 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 blah. Well, you, first of all, should have enough information to answer that question. But second of all, that's a lead. And you know what it costs you? Time. You don't need to buy leads from the internet and from hedge funds and from companies that are actually out to destroy the independent realtor. Anybody you're buying leads from, you are nothing more than a cog in their wheel. To these people, if they're saved in your phone, you're probably a human. And that's an entirely different conversation.
Whoa, you're totally right. Like, you're right. Like, most salespeople get call reluctance and make something up in their head. But with you're just joyfully extending an opportunity and being an advocate, and that's all what it really comes down to. So yeah, thank you for sharing that gem. And if changing gears a little bit, if you could have dinner with any historical figure, who would it be and why?
Oh, well, I would go hang out with probably the Apostle Paul, because a lot of people would say Jesus, but Jesus was perfect, and I'm so not perfect. I need to hang out with somebody else whose life has been kind of a hot mess. And if he can go from being the golden child who's murdering Christians to being converted, and then he spends his whole life building the church from prison, and he generally has a good attitude about it, I want to talk to him about what that's like. How do you go from screwing up to being absolutely changed, and then the whole world comes out to get you, but you're still joyful? I would love to talk to him.
No, it's a very interesting pick, I would say. It's a very just always. How do you see the glass always half full? You're very optimistic. Who or what inspires or influences you the most in your work, would you say?
Well, obviously for me, it's my dad, because my dad's really unique in that he got into real estate in 1978 and built it up by himself. He was one of the first ones in the Charlotte market to hire an assistant. He was one of the very first to have his own website. He was Mr. Cutting Edge. And after he retired, after 40 years in real estate, what's most interesting to me is that my dad didn't have any enemies. And real estate is always perceived as so cutthroat and mean. But my dad is that universally loved guy because he pours into people. He makes them feel like they're the most important person he's ever met. And he's the reason I can remember names really well, because he told me so many years ago, you've got to learn people's names. There's ways to do it. Just learn that trick. And of course, it's classic Dale Carnegie stuff, but my dad is just, he's the real life version of the good guy. And then of course my mom, who is the strength behind Mr. Good Guy, who keeps everybody organized. She's the most honorable person I know. I can ask her anything. And I'm the luckiest kid in the world that I have two parents that are just amazing leaders in their own right. And they of course have their own lives, and they don't like that I'm trying to take things over for them, but that's the job of the kid of aging parents. And I wish everybody was as lucky as me, and I know everybody's not. So all I wish for other people is that you find a mentor in life that's as honorable as my dad and as smart as my mom.
Yeah, you really had great parents growing up under a great roof. I'm so happy for you. Like that's very touching, I would say. I know I hope other people, listeners, can produce that for their family too. What's the story behind your most memorable success or failure, would you say?
Oh, I mean, I think my biggest failures are big public failures. I have run for public office 3 times, got nowhere close all 3 times. I keep learning, but it's just entirely possible that's not for me, because I don't play the game by the rules you're supposed to play it by. And whether people want to believe it or not, there's very little grassroots left in the political system. It's very much the machine and the cogs and the elites. And it's wild stuff to watch and learn from. And it sucks to get your butt kicked in public and spend a lot of money doing it. It's very expensive to run for office. But the flip side of that is it's been a great success for me, because I do not hide where I am politically. I just take a very strong belief that you can have your beliefs, and you can absolutely be foundational, but you cannot be ugly to the other side. And I have never been ugly to the other side of the political spectrum. I just don't think it's worth it, because I value the humans too much.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say my success is being known for what I believe, but not being ugly about it. And also, when you run for office, your sign is in hundreds of yards around your market area. So it's been a very big success in my marketing. And of course, there's people that say, well, but what if you lost a possible buyer, a possible seller from the other side of the aisle? And I say, okay, that's fine, because the free marketplace gives them the ability to say, I want somebody that matches me or doesn't. And if I'm not their match, isn't it better for them to find out sooner rather than later? So the transparency side has been wonderful from it. And the bigger success too from learning through that political process is I have the most amazing connections in the elected positions of all sides of government, whether it's local, state, or national. And I'm able to reach out to those elected officials and thank them when they do something that I'm glad about, and ask questions if they're involved in something I don't agree with, or fuss with them sometimes if they're in disagreement with something that can impact property rights. I'm very real estate focused in my politics, because I know what it means to our entire community as a whole. So I have access to the people who make the decisions, and I'm very grateful for that. And I don't want to abuse that or squander it either.
I mean, you have like a very strong network, a very strong spirit, a very powerful sphere of influence, I would say, based on what you just told me. So I'm sure when one door closes for you, 3 more open up. So
it's what life's about, right? I mean,
yeah.
I didn't win, and that's good, because I'm free to say what I want to say. I don't have anybody telling me what I can and can't do, so I can just let it all hang out, and I don't apologize for that. And when cancel culture has come for me, which it has, I don't care. You have to learn how to not care about what other people think. Now, I care about what my husband thinks. I care about what my family thinks. I somewhat care about what my kids think, but because they're 18 and 19 and they're not fully formed yet, their opinions are not quite baked. Let's just say that. But I'm definitely going to be a voice in helping them figure out how to discern truth in a world that seems to be allergic to truth. But outside of my tiny, tight circle, trolls and nasty commenters on the internet, they don't matter to me. And I really wish that more people would say, you know what? If an imaginary stranger says hateful things about me, is that going to ruin my day? And your answer should be, that's not going to ruin my day.
No, you're totally right. You're totally right, Lee. I'm not gonna lie to you. I once had like an old man look me dead in the eye. He's like, "Yo, a billion's not much when you're talking trillions." And it took me like 6 to 7 years to realize like 1% of a trillion is actually 10 billion. So if you're talking anything under 10 billion, the only thing that matters in this life is happiness. Like that's the only thing we should be chasing. Like money could be potentially a fallacy.
Oh, it is.
Thank you. Thank you for reassuring that, Lee. You're an amazing human being. What's the most courageous decision you've made recently, and how did it impact you?
Oh, the most courageous decision. I don't know that my decisions, I don't know that I feel like they're courageous, but I have been told that it is courageous for me to share my faith publicly. I am very much a Jesus girl. I am very much a follower of Christ and a child of God. And I don't apologize for that or hide it. But to me, it's kind of like the political side. If somebody doesn't see things in the way that I see it, that doesn't mean that they're dead to me. It just means that they're going to get the same kindness as somebody who does agree with me, because we're all in this life together. And a lot of people right now are afraid to share their faith because maybe the parts of the church don't behave well, and maybe there's some other believers they don't agree with. And so we start internalizing everything. Well, I just leave it out there because I guess it's courageous to plant a seed in the name of Jesus, but that's I know I've been called to do that. And my job is not to water the seed or to cultivate it. My job is to plant it. And so I'm out there planting, and I don't think it's courageous, but other people do. So that's my best answer for you.
Nah, it truly is. It truly is. I don't know if you know the law of numbers or not, but they say like 25% of people will love you no matter what you say or do. And then 25% of people, no matter, even if you're perfect, they're not going to like you for some reason. I don't know why. It's the other 50% that you have like influence or persuasion of having an opportunity. So yeah, you keep doing what you're doing, Lee. Like you are changing the lives of other human beings in this world, I would say. And then if you could change one thing about real estate, what would it be and why?
Well, there's a lot of things I would change about real estate, but the first thing I would change is the public perception. I don't like that real estate has been defined by HGTV, which is totally scripted, or Selling Sunset, which is embarrassing, or even by Phil Dunphy on Modern Family, who is a buffoon. We have seen very little conversation in the mainstream media or in Hollywood or anywhere that showcases how hardworking individual realtors are. So I would change the messaging, and I wish that would come from our trade association, but it's not going to, because they are far too embattled right now to do good things for the members because they're in survival hermit mode right now. If I could change anything amongst individual agents, it would be that they learn how to be who they are, that they would stop trying to be all things to all people, and realize that you can build an amazing business out of a small niche in your community. If you would just embrace that niche and get to know it very well, you could build a sustainable business. And from a trainer's mindset, if I could have my wish, we would have an apprentice program in all of the states coming from the real estate commission. So this would come from the licensure level that apprenticeship was required. I don't think it can come from the trade association, because then you have the members of the trade association might be a higher level, but the public is still exposed to the ones that are not. And if we truly believe in consumer protection through licensed realtors, then we need to go to the licensing body and say, we need you to step it up.
No, you bring up a great point. And it's funny, yeah, the TV only shows like the glitz and glamour just for the ratings. It really doesn't show like behind the scenes of like I guess you could call the boring work. And yeah, and agents, yeah, they really can. If they stay true to themselves, they really can find their niche. So everything you're saying is great facts, absolutes, and gems. What's the biggest misconception consumers have about real estate in today's world in 2024?
Well, I think it is that they think we don't do anything. And that's not a new perception. This is what's gone on for years. They truly think that realtors dress up, get in a fancy car, drive around, unlock a door, and then make oodles and scads of money. And that's wild. So I mentioned James Dwiggins before. He brought up another stat, which is that the public, when polled, thinks we work an average of 5 to 15 hours on any one sale. But the agent is working on average probably somewhere closer to 70 or 80 hours on that same sale. And agents have not conveyed that effectively because they've worked so hard to tell the public, I got this, I'll handle it. And so they're handling all this stuff in the background. They're sending all the text and calling the other agent, doing all this work. And then the buyer didn't see it because you were handling it. Well, we've got to, again, be more transparent with what we do so that they understand how much time we're investing in getting them over the finish line, and that time is involved in a lot of phone calls and emails and digging around. But yet when they saw us, it was unlocking a door and showing a house, and then they see you again at closing. We just have to make sure we're telling our story effectively. I think that there would be less fussing over what we're compensated if the public knew how hard we were working. But in our effort to make their lives easier, they didn't see it.
No, you're totally right. Like real estate just really stay humble about what they do. Because all you really see on social media is like under contract, and then you see like the picture of them at the closing table. You really don't, yeah, you know what I mean? You really don't see the in-between of what goes around like behind the scenes. Yeah, people maybe like if there's like a way to like showcase what goes behind the scenes and how many hours gets put in, you would see that what you get paid for is actually well deserved, and not something just very lucrative. Although it can be lucrative, it's actually well deserved for the time put in. And I got 3 more questions for you. What do you think was the turning point in your career journey? Would you say where your eyes just lit up and you're like, wow, this is me. Like I can really dominate and conquer real estate.
There's a lot of moments. So when I first got in, I was like many realtors. I was a bartender to pay for college, and so I kept bartending after college. And then one of my regulars hired me, and I wound up working on Wall Street and hated that. And then I got a job in corporate sales selling chainsaws, and I didn't like getting moved all the time. So I was like, well, I've been in 3 different jobs. What am I supposed to do? I can't keep job hopping. I'm a loser. I'm a failure. And my dad said, just get into real estate, because real estate tends to be the home for the people who don't fit anywhere else. So when I landed in real estate, I actually needed to make it work because I couldn't change jobs again. Like, I can't keep doing this. I have the worst resume ever. So I had to make it work at the beginning. And then as I'm working with buyers, and you start to see that magical moment that every realtor knows. You walk in the house and it's the one, and their little eyes light up. And you're like, oh my God, this is their house. Because real estate is not a commodity. That's one of the other big fallacies going on in light of all these lawsuits and in these articles. They seem to think that houses are click, click of a button. Houses are not. They're very strange because they're giant financial instruments, but all this emotion is in there. And buyers know when they find the right house, like, oh my God. And you're like, okay, let's help you get this. And I love that, helping them get what they want. So that was I had to survive, and then I wanted to survive to help them get what they want. And then when the recession hit, there was a stark difference between the types of agents out there. There were some agents that refused to acknowledge that the market had tanked and was continuing to tank, and they were using old information, old data. They were hurting people because they weren't reacting to the downward shift in the market. And so I had an opportunity there to tell people the truth. And the unvarnished truth might be painful, but it is the best thing you can give to people. That's what I'm good at. I'm good at truth. Well, that was a huge game changer for my business, and my business shot up because I would tell people, look, you're either going to lose a lot of money or you're going to sit tight. Those are your options. Or you're going to walk away and you'll have a financial hit forever. But I wasn't telling them, well, we can try a higher price. During the recession, you could not try a higher price. Wasn't going to happen. You could only get under the comps because the ball was going downhill so quickly. And my competitors, it's a great time to buy or sell. And I'm over here saying, look, you're going to get your ass handed to you. This is rough. And my business grew because I told people the truth. And that was huge. I wish I'd learned it sooner. And I wish more agents would learn it now because their social profiles are this picture of perfection. Social media is simultaneously the best and worst thing to happen to our business because you can build your business by being who you are, telling truth, sharing information. And then you can also put forth the fake version of yourself that just sold under contract. Oh, another happy client, and never tell any of the underlying stories. And it wind up biting you. I think it's biting real estate right now because for 4 years, agents have made social posts that said, I sold it in 5 minutes and had 400 offers and we got 800% of asking price, and made it look like they did nothing. And they drove prices out of control. And that none of that was the real story. And this thing did that to them. So if you embrace that truth piece, your business hits a comfort level too, where I can walk away from unrealistic buyers and I can walk away from unrealistic sellers because it is what it is. And I can't change that because I'm certainly not magical.
No, you're totally right. The landscape can change at any given moment. And in social media, you're right. People only post their highlight reel. They never really post like their most vulnerable states, I would say. So you bring up a great point. I got 2 more questions for you. Leigh, I'm gonna rewatch this when I'm really old, like when I'm 80. So like what's like one life piece of advice you want to give me, like a priceless, timeless piece of advice?
You can't go back in time and get the minutes back. I mean, if there's anything, I think you really figure out when you're medium age like I am, you can't go back. I don't care how bad you want to. Thomas Wolfe said it. You can't go home again. You just can't, because even if you went back, it's a different landscape. The past doesn't want to be changed. You can't change it, but you can let what you learned in the past change you. So you learn how to get off of the devices and go out for a walk. And the number of people who make the snide comments to me because I get up and run every day. I don't know why you do that. I'm like, I get to see sunrise every day. You don't ever see a sunrise. Go get up and see a sunrise. Get up and read the Bible. Get up and don't turn this stuff on. Because 80 years from now, the people who went outside more and turned this stuff off more, they're going to have better relationships. They're going to know themselves better, and they're going to have a different level of health than the people who hid behind a screen all the time and listened to the garbage that's being pushed into their heads. I want my future to look like better than, not less than.
No, you're truly elevating. Like, I love it. My last and final question: what's the most misunderstood thing about you, your industry, or your work?
Well, I'd say the most misunderstood thing about me is a lot of people think my life is perfect and I have it all together, and I don't. And as much as I try to convey that through my social messaging, is that I'm all over the place. There's still people that say, yeah, but you were still able to make a video. I can't. My life is so bad. And I have as many low moments as anybody. The only thing that makes me different is I've taught myself how to lean on Jesus so I can push through. And we have to stop thinking other people are perfect. There was only one perfect human who ever lived, and that was Jesus Christ. The rest of us are flawed, and that makes you amazing. Your flaws are what make you unique and special. If you look at a table, that knot that's in the middle tells you it's real wood. It's not pressed wood from Target. It's something real. And we know that the wood is strongest around where it's been broken. So where I've been broken is where I am now strongest, because I have healed and I have grown. And I wish people gave each other space to heal and grow. But we don't see that because in our political dialogue, this is recording in an election year. The most important thing for the other side is to tear their opponent down. What if, I know it's crazy, what if we stop trying to tear other people down because they're not perfect, and instead said, oh, you've grown from that? Good for you. What are you doing now? Where do you see things going? And we gave each other space to go forward. That's all I wish, is that we would grant that grace to each other. And that means that when I screw up, I'd sure like to have grace. So you have to be able to extend it if you want to receive it.
No, totally. Yeah, you're an open book. You reciprocate, and you're learning how to have like a Midas human touch, like the humans all out there. So I applaud you for being such a great human. Do you have any other questions, comments, or thoughts before I let you go?
Well, tell me what question you want to ask that you were afraid to put on the list or that's come up since we've been talking. For you, not for your audience.
Not for me. I don't know. Like this was an amazing talk, to be honest with you. The fact that you had a viral moment in 2011, like
What were you in middle school then?
I think I was in high school. I was like a junior, senior in high school.
Okay.
But you're right. Twitter was really big back then. Like that's so funny when you brought that up. Like that was really part of pop culture. But no, I think we covered everything. Or oh yeah, here's one question. Like, how do you explain to the consumer? This is actually I was asking this question honestly. How do you explain to a consumer that their wage growth is only 2 to 3%, but the house that they like goes up in value 5 to 6%, and like they might be on the fence if they wait for rates to drop? Like more people are gonna jump in, pushing the prices up higher, and they might actually get priced out. So how do you explain to the consumer that actually right now is actually the best time to buy?
That's very simple. It's because for that buyer, they have to decide that now is right for them. They have to make their decision independent of interest rates and independent of the market. That is the only way to make good real estate decisions, because we're in a world of instant gratification. And if we tell them prices are going to go up, well, they want it to happen right now. But it's a historic thing that prices go up, because in this going up over time, there's a lot of chunka that goes on. And so the moment when you might have to sell might be a chunka down. And now the number doesn't feel good, but it might be a chunka up and it feels great. But this is a 10 and 20-year window. We have to stop thinking in terms of 10 minutes is a forever right now. If I make a 10-minute video, people are so tuned out. But 10 years in real estate is actually a short amount of time. So what I say to my buyers is, if the house you want is this, let's get a payment from the lender. That's all that matters to me is what's your payment? Can you handle the payment? If you handle the payment, buy the house. If you can't handle the payment, then we find a different house. But if you're always waiting, you're never going to make a decision. And it's not making the decision means you're going to pay the price. I have on my desk a stack right here. This is my list of buyers and sellers who are still in the process. We all have these on our desk. And in that stack are people that have said to me, I should have bought in 21. Yeah, you should have. I should have bought in 19. Yeah, you should have. And I cannot take you back and change that. So you either find a time machine, probably not happening because DeLoreans are not making a comeback, or you're waiting on the market to crash. And if the market crashes, did you lose your job and now you can't qualify for a loan? Are your savings decimated because your down payment was in the stock market and now the stock market's gone to hell? You cannot keep waiting for some utopic future. It doesn't exist. You do, however, need to understand this. Interest rates, they're not going back to the 3% range. I wish all of these little influencers and lenders on the internet would stop talking about buy and refi. Stop that. It's the payment today. Can you handle the payment today? And the reason we're not going back to 3%, our economy cannot handle that shock. Inflation is still way too high. And I don't care how you're looking at that. The inputs keep getting changed. We are being fed garbage data. You know inflation's high when you go to the grocery store and you pay $6.99 for a bag of damn Tostitos. That's not normal. And as long as we have inflation, interest rates have to stay high. Tell your buyers, understand it this way. Until interest rates are above the rate of inflation, inflation can't stop. And interest rates are what creates a ceiling. Right now, interest rates are still below inflation. And that's why inflation doesn't stop. So if interest rates keep going down, inflation keeps going up, which means you won't be able to afford the house regardless. So all of that being said, what's the payment on the house you like? Can you handle it? If so, let's buy the house.
You showed me. You just showcased me one of your most genius moments. Like That's genius.
Well, I maybe need to go back and teach economics and legal systems in high schools because I don't even think our government officials understand the relationship of inflation and interest rates. And as realtors who handle people's largest financial instrument, we have to have a handle on it. And by the way, for anybody watching or listening to this that immediately felt like I was going political, ask yourself why basic economic topics have become political. And then you realize that a lot of our discourse has been polluted when we should be focused on metrics and data and basic truth.
You're an open book. You're so transparent. I love it. I love it, Leigh. How do you like people communicating with you?
Well, I love social media. Obviously, the best way to reach me is through any of the channels in my DMs, although I'm not good about checking LinkedIn messages. Full disclosure, it's just not exciting to me. But if you leave one there, I'll eventually find it. Instagram and Facebook. I have my assistant puts it on TikTok, but I don't want the Chinese Communist Party in my phone, so she manages my TikTok messages. But everything is at leighbrown.com, including all my social handles. So reach out anytime, ask a question, or ask me on your show. So thank you for having me on your show. It's definitely an honor to be a guest.
Thank you. No, it was a true honor and pleasure. I definitely learned from you today. I'll say that. Ladies and gentlemen, you just heard from a queen from North Carolina. Reach out to Leigh Brown. She is a genius in the space. She's honestly the truth. Leigh, thank you so much. Can you stay on for 1 or 2 minutes, please?
Absolutely.
Thank you.